What about you?
Well, I think this is one of the most important antitrust decisions that we've seen in decades. The Trump Justice Department has taken a very, very aggressive stance on these vertical integrations when, you know, they're not competitors.
And let's pause on that for a second. So as I understand, it's about the first time in several decades, maybe in 50 years, that the Justice Department has sued to stop a vertical merger. Usually they're looking more at horizontal mergers, which, you know, companies in the same industry amassing more power. The argument here is, well, these companies are in different industries, but they'll still be amassing too much power?
Yeah, but, you know, the Justice Department, I was watching this suit. The Justice Department made those claims, and AT&T just decimated their lawyers, decimated them, said, look at Facebook, look at Amazon, look at Comcast. These are big competitors, and we have massive competition. You can't say that this is, but, you know, this has been colored by politics because of President Trump. And they're taking a very unique stand. There's $814 billion worth of vertical mergers that have just been announced this year.
Wow.
And this decision is going to play a big impact.
Yeah, it's not just about the media space, Mike. Some very tough, Paul, is what you were saying, but he asked some very tough questions of the Justice Department when they were presenting their suit that did not, you know, we always try to read between the lines of Supreme Court questions as to what are they going to rule and how they, if you did that with these questions, it does sound like he wasn't totally convinced by the Justice Department, but at the same time, they're the ones who have the burden of proof here.
Right, and there's also a precedent in this area. It was the Comcast, NBC Universal,
yes.
Your parent company.
Yes.
There were 100 restrictions basically dealing with these anti-competitive things.
Which expire in just a couple months' time.
Exactly. But I do not be surprised if this judge puts some of those same restrictions that we saw on the Comcast
And the
NBC.
tricky thing about that is it makes the Justice Department a regulator. And so it's a difficult thing. So as much as they might say, oh, this is one way to resolve it, they're in a difficult situation themselves.
Well, that's the question. Does this make the Justice Department the regulator or the court the regulator?
Right.
And the Justice Department says they don't want to be the regulator in these things. That's why they prefer that you get rid of assets. But the courts have, in the past, you know, they make sure that these things are implemented. So it's an interesting...
Oh, yeah. Approaches this from, he's saying, I look at the financial markets, I see signs of imbalances. He was talking about how, you know, this time around we have budget deficits, we have, you know, not the surplus situation that we did last time. He's looking at the stock market, he's looking at, you know, so in that, if that's your dashboard, does that signal to you, hey, we can handle this, versus if you're looking at the inflation rate, for example? You know, and Paul, I don't know, but maybe, you know, if you're coming from a financial markets point of view, you're probably very different than what the economists are looking at.
Yeah, and if you look at the earnings yield, for stocks in the S&P 500 is so much higher than whatever 3%, 4% that we might eventually get at with Fed raises. Who in the world's going to leave the stock market when the earnings yield is higher than what you're going to get on a bond yield?
No, but people, they
can't eat your earnings yield.
Yeah.
That's the other issue. So it's a matter of how much risk you're willing to shoulder while you hope those things come into line.
I know, that's always the issue. Guys, everybody stay right there. We're going to await full details on the AT&T ruling. I'll give you the last word here. If the judge blocks this, then what?
Well, I do not believe if the judge is probably not going to block this, but he's going to do kind of what Craig said using the Comcast model. There's going to be restrictions, and those restrictions have worked. And it stops the DOJ from becoming a regulatory entity. That's why I do not believe that if AT&T wins, I don't think the Justice Department's going to appeal this ruling.
Really?
Because they don't really want to be in that business, and the antitrust regulators have said so.
Okay. All right. Andy?
Change the image of AT&T, I believe, for all investors. It's a value company right now.
Are you an owner of AT&T?
I am. And it has a 10 PE. It has a 5.8, 5.9 dividend yield. I mean, this is a value stock. And it's no longer going to be Ma Bell after today if they win.
But it's not Ma Bell now.
No, but it's still considered a telecom company.
Yeah.
And now it's going to become a content media company. And he was right. It's going to start being valued like the Netflix, Amazons.
Well, I'm sure that's what
like
they hope.
That is what they hope. But that's probably will happen.
With stability and profitability.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, those are big, big distinguishing factors. I mean, once it does become that content play, theoretically, you are now putting a jolt of life back into this company. I'm not saying it was dead or sleepy, but you can put AT&T in your back pocket.
Of 10, so clearly,
but investors are going to look back, I believe, in 5 years from now and say, "My God, we could have bought AT&T at a 10 PE with a 5.8% dividend yield, and now its PE is going to go up after this."
All right.
You know, there's some smaller distributors, too, that we haven't really talked much about, like Sinclair. If their merger goes through, which I assume it will, they're going to be a big player, and they may be a really big beneficiary in this thing.
So many different parts to watch. Great stuff. Let's get back over to Melissa Lee and the Fast Money crew.